Hello and welcome to my channel. I am the Mad Computer Scientist. If you are new to this channel, I would like you to take a minute to like, comment, subscribe, and if you do subscribe, ring that notification bell so you will always receive the latest updates from this channel. I am sorry everyone, I've been rather busy with real life, and of course the election was not something I really wish to comment on because it doesn't really have anything to do with this channel. Now, I'm not necessarily pleased with the results of the election, but even though the results were not positive for me, it still has very little to do with the overall theme of this channel other than the fact that Elon Musk is a terrible choice for any cabinet position related to technology because Elon Musk is not as much of a genius as he lets on. With that being said, I do need to cover something from the election that has been coming up and shared widely on TikTok. It has been known as Blue Anon among certain circles, and these are conspiracy theories that generally involve voting machines, usually spread by people who don't understand the systems that are put in place to keep these systems from being hacked and to make sure the system is secure. This does not mean there are not issues with the voting machines, merely that some of the conspiracy theories are way out there and don't really understand things like air gapping or how things like source code work. Today we're going to look at a video my sister shared to me on TikTok where she wanted to know if it was plausible, and it was certainly plausible, but that doesn't mean it's what happened. After all, we don't want to go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, no matter how entertaining they might be, if there's a more rational explanation. If there is a more rational explanation we can use to explain what happened. I will get to the video in just a little bit, but before I get to the video, I want to make sure everyone knows one thing. The video did not have any sound. I wish it did, but I will be reading from the card, which I know does not really make for an entertaining video on my end. I apologize for that in advance. I will of course link the video below for those of you who wish to go check to make sure I am getting things right. I will also show the text on the screen, and I will move more slowly than the TikTok video did. Before I begin, I'm going to apologize for reading from what appears to be a post in someone's Threads account. If you would like to go look it up, please do so. But we start with the second of 13 threads, which is interesting. Stephen Spoonamore tells us, I continue to work professionally finding hackers and fairly often develop and install hacks designed to ferret out the misuse of systems. My customers have included numerous governments and F-100 firms. I write risk assessments of smart grid technologies for Obama and IP protection for GE. The last slide seems to be nothing more than someone trying to establish credentials that he or she may not have. Now, I don't mean to denigrate Spoonamore, but I have been on the internet a while, and I've argued with a lot of people who would claim 3 relevant degrees in a particular field if they were losing an argument about a certain topic. Note that I'm not accusing Spoonamore of not having the credentials that he or she claims. It's just that I've been on the internet long enough to be skeptical of anyone trying to promote a conspiracy theory who just happens to have relevant credentials. I can't be sure that those credentials weren't made up on the spot. Now let us go to the third slide in this thread. Spoonamore explains to us, here is what we are seeing. The tabulation systems at the county level were hacked far in advance of the election. The hack was probably written into the code even before the code was installed. It will have a when function and if then functions to have the machine to force balance to A, and it continues on to the next slide, where we read, it will have a given outcome within a specific window of time. You could test the machines 1,000 times before the election night, and the result would be correct. If you run it during the time window, the force balancing will be turned on, and regardless of inputs, you will get a programmed output. Now I'm going to pause for a second, because what is said here is actually plausible. It is possible to use a if-then statement to check for the time, and then produce a certain result within that time, Well, it will react normally every other day of the year, except for, in this case, November 5th, 2024, where it would spit out votes for Donald Trump regardless of what people actually put in. But even though this is a plausible conspiracy theory, there is no evidence of this. Fortunately, the person is going to try to tell us how to find it in the next couple of slides, and I want you to pay attention because what they suggest is impractical but not impossible. It is very simple to prove this. Take the two most outlandish precinct results from any county and just hand count the ballots. They won't match the tabulation outputs. From what I am seeing, you will find 8 to 11% average shifts from Democrat to Republican. Be sure to check heavy red areas, easier to cover up. A run-up of the score. That was how it was done in Ohio versus Kerry. GOP flips in already highly red areas. Now, why bomb threats? They were not to allow for hacker access. The programming was already in place. They were to break the chain of custody and produce legal grounds to not trust a recount. Every place that got a bomb threat is a place that courts will now have to consider the factual argument of whether the ballots could have been tampered with while evacuations were going on. They weren't, but that is the argument the GOP will make to prevent recounts. I would like to point out something this person seems to be missing. Even though he earlier described how a certain function could be written to do what he is proposing that we do rather expensive hand recounts. If he truly were a programmer, there would be an easier way to do this. You would simply take a look at the source code. We can argue quite a bit about whether open source election code or closed source election code is more secure. Personally, I would go with open source election code for voting machines because that means there are many more eyes keeping an eye on the code and making sure no one tries to do anything sneaky. What he's also here isn't really a hack either, whereas a hack is trying to exploit the way a program or operating system functions. What he is suggesting is that the code was deliberately modified to give Donald Trump a win. What we do not know is if he's suggesting it was modified across all the companies that produce the voting machines, just certain voting machines, or just certain voting machines in different states. Has this been found on every voting machine? What types of voting machines is he working with? It's these lack of details that should cause people to question this story as well. If he really feels that strongly that the election was stolen, he should probably bring this to the attention of a journalist, or at least someone who has the skills to investigate the claim. Now, this is one of the more plausible conspiracy theories about the election I've seen. But we don't need to engage in conspiracy theories, we just need to make sure the government can't enact policies. And yes, the government's people includes marginalized and minoritized groups, such as racial minorities, LGBTQ people, immigrants, and many other groups I'm forgetting. This has been slightly longer than I intended. I hope everyone has a good day. Now go out and write some code. And I apologize for the delay in production of content, but I have been rather busy for the past couple of weeks with the calculus course and a couple of other courses that are condensed, and this is making me do worse than I would otherwise if the courses were the normal 16-week courses. For any of you who do plan on going to college, just be aware of this when you take condensed courses. Make sure the workload isn't 16 weeks condensed into 8 weeks. Some college courses do not have to be 16 weeks long, but other courses most definitely should not be condensed into half that time.